something special. Now today we have another great pilot of Indian Air Force fight. Now we have Air Marshal Sumit Mukerjee sir on the call to share his experiences of flying, I think, all kinds of big variants. And leading the interview will be by our group captain Dev Gohen sir. Kindly take over, sir.
Thank you, TBR.
Yes, sir.
Firstly, I must say I'm really honored and privileged to be asked to conduct this webinar. I know Air Marshal Sumit Mukerjee for quite some time, and I can only say that, we are talking to a legend of our time.
Legend, yes, sir.
He's one of the most outstanding officers of Indian Air Force who retired in the rank of Air Marshal in 2011 in the rank of Air Marshal. May I present Air Marshal Sumit Mukerjee Shaurya Chakra, Vishist Seva Medal, Param Vishist Seva Medal, ADC, who actually does not need any introduction to many of us served in the Indian Air Force for last. Air Marshal Sumit Mukerjee has agreed to talk to us on his career in the Air Force, and the main focus of his talk will be the flying the MiG-25, of which we all eagerly waiting to hear. He's also been talked to his other experiences in the Air Force. Hopefully he gets time. After having served in the Indian Air Force for about 30 years, almost at the same time as Sumit sir, we know that there is no other person in Indian Air Force who would know about this most secretive machine that it flew in the subcontinent. And we are so lucky to have him with us to tell us the fascinating stories of the MiG-25, which can be defined as one of the enigma, not only in Indian Air Force, but also in the entire world. Okay, well, before I hand over the mic to Air Marshal Mukerjee, let me give you a very brief introduction on his life and career in the Air Force. I hate to make it brief, actually, because I think it'll take me on full session to talk about Sumit sir. But anyway, we have constraints of time. This is one officer who started shining from the day one he joined the Air Force. In commissioning, he begged all trophies except one at Hakimpet. That is the best all-round pilot of trophy at the President's Plug, the Chief of the Air Staff Medal for the first order in merit, the Majunda Trophy for best in flying. After that, whatever he achieved thereafter has a tag of only. Only means he's the only pilot to have landed an aircraft which the engine had seized, not flamed out but seized. And only instruction given to an aircraft that has seized to a pilot is eject. He didn't eject. He brought back the aircraft, that was with a pupil pilot. He's the only pilot in the Air Force, maybe in the entire world, to have commanded the units of the aircraft that has all the MiG variants in the Air Force. That's the MiG-21, MiG-23, MiG-27, MiG-29, and MiG-25. And again, once again, only pilot to have photographed solar eclipse from a MiG-25 at stratosphere flying at a speed of Mach 3. I don't think I need many more to introduce to the veterans of the Sumit sir. And I have to go on a little more about him because I want him to concentrate more on his main subject of MiG-25. We have only 1.5 hours with him, and most of his time I think he will take in describing this aircraft called MiG-25, of which we all want to listen very eagerly. About his background, Sumit is from a service background. His father was an Army Medical Corps. Most of his schooling was done from Sherwood College at Nainital. The school that boasts of students from Sherwood College at Nainital, Sherwood College. That's the student that boasts is like Field Marshal Manekshaw, Amitabh Bachchan, Air Marshal Mike Mahon, and etc. I think they should be all proud, Sumit sir, to be saying that they went to the same school. He joined NDA in 1967 as an Air Force cadet. You'd be surprised to know that Sumit sir didn't want to join the Indian Air Force. He wanted to join Indian Navy because he wanted to fly from the deck. How he came into the folds of the Air Force is another story. I hope he gets some time to tell us, but I definitely pity Navy. Coming to the number of qualifications Sumit had in his career, I don't know what sequence I should cover. His first flying qualification is he's a qualified flying instructor. And he went on to become the A1 instructor in Indian Air Force. That's the highest rating as an instructor in Indian Air Force. He commanded TACD, the Tactical Air Combat Development Establishment. As most of you will probably knowing, is a premier institution of Air Force where tactics are evaluated and developed for fighters, helicopters, radar, ECM, etc., etc. Whenever new aircraft comes to the Air Force, it is evaluated in TAC D. This is also an institution that carries out courses like FCL, Fighter Combat Leader, Fighter Strike Leader, similar courses for fighter controllers and helicopter pilots. They have picked up pilots from the field of the cream of the cream, the selected few, and they go through these courses for 3 to 6 months, a most grueling course, and one doesn't know to the last day whether he's passing out or he's heading for the Jamnagar railway station with a warrant in the hand to go back home. It's that tough a course. Sumit was not only an FCL, Fighter Combat Leader, he became a DS in TAC Day, that is directing staff, and later he commanded TAC Day. He also did a staff course in Defense Officer Staff College. Then you guessed it right, he also became the DS there, maybe very shortly. Coming towards awards and medals, as a QFI at FTW, as I said, he was awarded a Shaurya Chakra. There's a peacetime gallantry for bringing back an aircraft whose engine had seized. Great. Mind you, it was not a flame out, but it was, TBI, I can't see myself as a speaker. It was, mind you, I said it's not a flame out, it's a seized aircraft. And as I said, if the engine seizes, one has to eject. Sumit didn't eject because they're flying over a very popular area and over Secunderabad, Hyderabad. He chose to bring back the aircraft and landed the aircraft with a pupil on board. It's an incredible story. I hope, Sumit sir, you get some time to tell us about this story too. Other awards that I can mention about is he was awarded the Vishist Seva medal in 1997. On 26 Jan 2011, he was awarded the Param Vishist Seva medal in recognition of his lifetime achievements and distinguished service of the most exceptional order. On 1st Jan 2011, he was appointed honorary Air ADC to the President of India. Among the frontline fighters that he has flown is MiG-21, MiG-25, and a MiG-29, and also commanded a MiG-25 and a MiG-29 squadron. I would definitely like to know from him the differences he felt in flying these two aircraft, which is so different from each other. MiG-29 is a beautiful, most maneuverable aircraft in the world, which do a tail slide, whereas the MiG-25 is a giant beast of an aircraft which flies at Mach 3 at stratosphere in straight and level. I hope he has some time to talk to us about both the MiG-29 as well. Among the important assignments in IF and MOD, he was the air attaché in Embassy of India in Washington, D.C. He was a SASO of Headquarters, Central Air Command 2007-8, Air Officer in Charge Personnel, the AOP, in Air Headquarters. On 1st September 2009, he was appointed the Air Officer Commanding-in-Chief of Southern Air Command. Air Marshal Mukerjee retired from IAF on 30th June 2011 after almost 40 years of dedicated service. He is now settled in Gurgaon. Sumit's spouse, Nandita Mukerjee, is a professional in her own right, a teacher of the English language. She has been a principal of 2 schools, been on examining and advisory board of both CBSE and ICS. Their only son, Rahul Mukerjee, is a software professional based at USA. I think I've taken enough time. Sumit sir, may I take a few more minutes to spell out the modus operandi of this webinar? The talk by Sumit sir would be approximately for 45 minutes. Then we have a Q&A session. Preferably those who want to ask a question. So Air Marshal, please use this chat box, preferably. We end this session at 7 p.m. sharp because Air Marshal has got other engagement for the evening. But I know this half an hour will be not enough because so many of you must have been his colleagues. Some of you must have served under him. Some of you must have just known him as a fantastic person, a human being that he is. So we'll request him at the end of the session if he can spare us some more time for another session sometime next week. With this, I end my very brief introduction of Air Marshal Sumit Mukerjee, and I hand over the mic to Air Marshal Mukerjee. Sir.
Thank you, sir. Dave, first and foremost, let me just say that I'm deeply privileged and very honored to be on this forum, actually. Being here, having heard of this group and the Air Warriors Association and the sort of work that you do, the interaction that you have, it's absolutely fantastic to listen to all of you and listen to the veterans, some of them who've spoken. And I've had the privilege to listen to the last one, Doc Vaidya, and it was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for the introduction, Dave. And I think I'm deeply flattered at all that you said. I don't think it deserves that much. But anyhow, I'll get on from wherever sort of you want me to go, and hopefully I'll try and cover whatever you want me to cover, and we'll take it on the question and answer and see how it goes. Is that fine?
Yes, I think that should be fine. Like I had in my introduction, I had said that we'd like to be
all right.
more on MiG-25, and of course, there are many other things that, as I said, we'd like to hear from you. But I think in what sequence you would like to take on? Is it MiG-25? Should we start from, and then we go over to?
Right. I'll just take it as it comes slowly.
Right.
There's enough time for the MiG-25 also.
Okay.
And I think you've given me 45 minutes. Is a long time. Basically, as Deb has described, I didn't want to join the Air Force, as he said, and I wanted to join the Navy. In fact, it was a strange thing that at my farewell party, as when I was retiring after almost 40 years of service at the CNC in Southern Air Command, I started that speech of mine by saying, ladies and gentlemen, I joined this Air Force by mistake. And the crowd was, their eyes were wide open. They were looking at me. They said, what is this Air Marshal talking about? 40 years of service. He's about to retire. And he says he joined the Air Force by mistake. So as Deb said, I actually applied to join as a naval cadet. I'm very fond of, I was very sort of impressed by naval aviation. I wanted to fly off the deck. So I joined as a naval cadet, and my SSB, after doing the UPSC exam, SSB was in Allahabad. And there I failed my medical for eyesight. The doctor there said, your night vision is not up to the mark. So I was rejected. I was sent off and I went home. Rejected as far as eyesight is concerned. The rest of the tests was all passed. And a couple of weeks later, I get a call to go for the Pilot Aptitude and Battery Test, PABT in Dehradun, which is where you join the Air Force part as pilots. And I went for the PABT, and the PABT has some fantastic games, literally. It's like video games those days there were no video games, but the manual ones, but they were very fascinating ones. And I did fairly well, I think, and I enjoyed myself. And they called me for my medical at the Central Medical Establishment, CME, in Delhi, which I think everybody is very familiar with. So at CME, we were lined up, these students, appearing for NDA. And so the doctor was a flight lieutenant. And so he was going through the list and reading out the names of the guys. And then he said, Sumit Mukerjee? I said, yes. He says, you've already failed a medical earlier? I said, yes. So I said, for eyesight with the Navy. So he said, then why have you come here? The Air Force requirements are more stringent. I said, I don't know. I've been called, I have come. So he told me to step aside, and he told the sergeant, he says, take this boy and take him for the eye test. I don't want him to waste our time. I'll let the rest of the people go for their medical, the routine medical, height, weight, chest, jo bhi hai. And if he fails his medical, throw him out, so send him home. So they did my eye test, and the doctor found my eyes were absolutely perfect. Night vision was perfect. So they gave me a form to fill up and to say an appeal to say that I should be recalled back to the Navy because the eyesight has been certified fit by the Air Force. I was going home in a bus from the race course in Delhi, where CME was those days. And so in the bus, I was not really interested. So I tore up that form, and the nearest dustbin, I threw it in the dustbin, and I got out of the bus. And that was it. I forgot. So when the call came for NDA, it came as an Air Force cadet. And so that is the history, and that is how I joined the Air Force. So it's been a strange sort of a story. But anyhow, I joined, and the NDA.
Like I said, we really pity the Navy.
Destiny is a destiny.
Destiny, absolutely, destiny. So then through the training stages, and I think flying came fairly naturally to me. I was an above average academic student in school also. So with the result, my academics or ground subjects was pretty okay, and I was very comfortable. And of course, the flying came to me quite naturally in the sense that I was extremely comfortable in the cockpit. And basically, as all the pilots who are viewing this will understand, and for those who have flown aeroplanes, that there is motor coordination, as they call it. The hands, the feet, the brain, the eyes, everything coordinating for a particular purpose. And so that motor control was adequate for the requirements. And I went through the 3 stages of flying fairly comfortably, and I did quite well, in fact. We were the first course. 107 pilots course was the first course in the Air Force Academy in Dundigal. Air Force Academy Dundigal was created, and the Air Force Flying College from Jodhpur moved to Dundigal, and ours was the first course there. So on 17th of January 1971, we did the inauguration parade for the Air Force Academy, and we started flying off that airfield for the first time ever. Air Force Academy, for those who have been there sometime in their lives, was a very basic institution at that time. There was one building, which was the ATC building, which is now called the Sekho building. There were 6 hangars, there was a tarmac, and there was 1 runway. Nowadays there are 2. So there was 1 runway. And there was cadets mess, there was a commandant's house, and there were about 12 or 16 officers' houses, and there was no officers' mess, nothing. So the bachelor officers stayed with us in the cadets mess. So we had to be in our best behavior all the time. And of course, for the warrant officers, SNCOs, and the airmen, there was very limited accommodation. We didn't go that much that side, but it was all jungle and just open area and AFA, and there was nothing else. There was a lake. There was a big lake there. And those who have been there to AFA later would have seen that from the main gate to Sekho block, there are rows of gulmohar, beautiful orange gulmohar trees that are blooming in the summer. And let me tell you that our course, the first course, planted those trees by, we were front rolling as punishment and planting the seeds in those places that were given to us. And so we front rolled that 1 mile of the road to plant the trees. So, well, they're blooming. The fact is that it was part of our sweat and blood, whatever. Anyhow, that's all part of the game. I passed out of the Air Force Academy on top of the course, and I got the best all round and the best in flying at AFA on passing out. And then we moved to Hakimpet, and there we did our 6 months of flying. Now, Hakimpet was also, it was supposed to finish in December of 71. And when the planning was done, and you plan a passing out parade so that you can find the chief guests, unko date pehle se dena padta hai, 3 months in advance and all that. So to find out which chief guest you can get. The date for our passing out parade was 3rd December or 4th December, I think one of those. And I think everybody is aware that the war started on the 3rd December evening, and 4th is when India declared war. So you can imagine that was aware that the war is going to start by end of July, August. The war clouds were on the horizon, and so the tempo of flying increased a lot, because we knew the instructors had to go back to the units and fight. So the tempo was increased, and actually they finished most of our flying. Most of the course was finished by the time they left. And so after the instructors left, they left sometime in October.
Oh, you must be felt so bad you missed the war so close.
Yes. It was, but you're training, you're building up to that, and you miss it.
Yes.
But that's again Kismet. So Kismet, we didn't fight that war. And so our commissioning was postponed into January. So we got commissioned on the 22nd of January, 1972. So, and as Deb has mentioned, I was fortunate, I was lucky that I won the, what is called the Sword of Honor today. Was that time a President's Plaque. So the President's Plaque for the best all-round cadet. And the best in flying, which is a Majumdar trophy named after Jumbo Majumdar, the legendary Jumbo Majumdar. And also I got the Chief of Air Staff's medal for being first in the order of merit. So I'm number one in my course in that respect.
Who got the fourth prize? If you remember, sir? I mean, the four trophies.
Was ground subjects, and that was Noel Moitra.
Noel Moitra. Okay.
Group Captain Noel Moitra, who commanded one squadron, Mirages. And so Noel Moitra got the ground subjects. So, but what I would like to say at this stage is that when the war clouds were there and we knew the instructors were going to leave, they had to start practicing for war. So they started doing combat sorties on the Vampire. We were flying the Vampire there. And incidentally, in AFA, we were flying the Howards, which Dave has also flown. And there in the Vampires, they started doing 1 versus 1 and 2 versus 1 and 2 versus 2 air combat. And I was fortunate, and a few of us were fortunate to fly in the 2-seater trainer with our instructors to get into this combat and learn about combat at a very early stage in life. So our course has been fortunate. We've had some very strong grooming as we grew up in the service, with a very good orientation of flying the way flying is the fighter is supposed to be done. In AFA itself, our chief instructor was Dennis Lafontaine, who became the chief. I think everybody is aware of it. And then we had instructors like Sukrut Raj, Chandrasekhar, Roy Massey, and they're all Roy Massey and Sukrut Raj Veer Chakra awardees. Dilip Parulkar, we met in your sessions, and you know him very well. So Michael McMahon.
I know you're talking about the same.
I hope you get Michael McMahon also sometimes.
I know you're talking about the same set of instructors that we had. And
yes.
Difference is that you saw them, you met them before the war, and we met them after the war. When they came back with a VRC pinned on their chest, my God. The same with the sort of Roy Massey, Shukutaraj, C.D. Chandrasekhar. It was wonderful. So, I mean, it's motivating to see those instructors.
So it was extremely motivating, and so there was a great incentive. I mean, the way they treated you as cadets, the way they taught you, it was wonderful. It was wonderful. You never felt that you were a student.
That's
it was almost like a young buddy that they brought you up like that. And when we did the combat flying, my instructor was Flight Lieutenant in those days, AJ Singh, who later became Wing Commander AJ Singh and my first CO in the MiG-25.
That's right.
And so AJ Singh would take me up in the cockpit, and we would go through this combat and doing 1 versus 1, 2 versus. So we were groomed into this combat scenario before even we got commissioned. Anyhow, post the commissioning, we got 10 days to go home and say hello to our parents, and we landed up in OTU in Jamnagar. And who do we see there? DK Das, who's there right on the screen with all of us. And
I have to interrupt you, Sumit sir.
Sir, DK sir.
He's here. There he is.
Yes.
Sumit sir, I have to interrupt you because you also become a poster boy in Junior Statesman. Your photographs came in that magazine. I think I got a photograph here. And can I show that? Share them. And
sure.
Can you see the screen now in that JS interview?
Yes, I can see it.
Yeah. This is the one I remember seeing it as a flight cadet when Sumit Mukerjee became pilot officer. He was the envy of us. He got full coverage of to be a good fighter pilot is ambition enough. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deb.
We shall continue.
Okay. So, as I said, our grooming was very good, and we landed up in Jamnagar, and there was DK sir, and our station commander was the legendary Pete Wilson. The CO of OTU was Don Conquest, and the chief instructor at the armament training wing in Jamnagar was Mini Baba, who became an Air Marshal Baba. And all the people there, the staff, had just come back from the war, and they had excelled at the Battle of Longewala, which I think everybody is familiar with. And all the VRCs, there was so many of them. It was it was a galaxy of award winners. And there were DK Sir and Cookie Suresh and Don Conquest and Sherwin Tully and, so many of them. So Jagbir Singh, it was a fantastic learning for us. And they were already, the adrenaline, as you say, the blood was still, full of adrenaline to fight and to train. And we were still on alert, in the sense that the op alert went away on 31st of March. So the alert status was there in Jamnagar in January when we went. And we started our flying, and with all these people who were fresh out of war, with these wonderful awards on their chest. And for us, it was the ultimate. These were the heroes that we looked up to and we saw and we grew up,
And
sort of emulating or trying to emulate, to say.
And few of them have only one ribbon in their chest. That's a VRC.
Yes, yes.
Most of them are still there when we joined in the FTW. Hakim Jamnagar. And Don Conquest is still there, the CEO.
So it was a very, I say to everybody that for us, it was a very privileged growth or a growing up in the Air Force. And we were privileged and actually truly honored to have flown, interacted with these icons of the Air Force and learned from them and grew up hoping like hell that we can do something as good or as much as they had done. So DK Sir, once again, a salute to you, and we were truly honored and blessed that we served with people like you. From there, Dave, it was hop to converted to MiGs. Were posted to MiGs, went to 45 Squadron, but there were already 12 guys doing the conversion there.
That was in Bareilly.
So they couldn't accommodate us.
That was in Bareilly? Chandigarh, 45.
Chandigarh.
Okay.
That time, Squadron Leader Tipnis was the flight commander, who later became the Chief of Air Staff, and Chief Marshal Tipnis. He was the flight commander. And he told us, he said, look, I can't take you 9 chaps on, and we'll speak to Air Headquarters, and in the next 1 week, you will go to Tezpur, to 28th Squadron. That 1 week took 6 months. Air Headquarters, the Peace Staff, and the AOP's branch. I became AOP later on, I'm so sorry to say. So that's the irony of it. But they took 6 months. So by end of December 72, we were posted to Tezpur. And we reached on, I think, 1st of January, 1973.
For those 6 months, no flying, isn't it?
No, we drank tea and wrote letters, and, that's it. And did nothing else. We did a MCF and ground training on the MiG-21 there in Chandigarh, but not even allowed to do the simulator. They said, you go to Tezpur and do it. So we were left out of that. We went to Tezpur, and there again we found, which has won laurels in the war, and that was with then Wing Commander Bhoop Bishnoi, who I think you all have interacted with.
VRC and Bar.
VRC and Bar. And he was my CO there, my first CO on the MiG-21. And
So
I think, Shekhar sir, are you there on the group this evening? Yesterday you spoke to me, you said you're going to be here. Is Captain Shekhar?
KC Shekhar is here.
KC Shekhar.
Oh, he's here.
Shekhar sir, are you there? So hopefully he'll come on. Shekhar sir was my first MiG flight commander in 28th Squadron, and but then he had decided to leave the service, and he left, I think, by March or April of 73. He had left the service, and he went on later to join Air India and had a very illustrious service with Air India. So Shekhar sir was there, and the flight commander, Bhoop Bishnoi as CEO. So we learned a lot again there, and we heard so many of these stories about the war and the attacks on Dhaka and the governor's house. And I've had this little flair of my handwriting is pretty good. I've won a couple of prizes in school on my handwriting, so my drawing is also pretty okay.
I think KC Shekhar has come on the line. He raised his hand. So unmute yourself, sir. Anyways, I think